Okay.
So I've got a lemon yellow and a yellow ochre. And then my two reds. So one's warm and one's cool. So medium red and crimson. And this is acrylic, obviously. And then I've got a cerulean blue and an ultramarine. Ultramarine and cerulean blue. So I basically got, as you'll know, these are the primary colors, right? Yes.
Yes, but you can
Yes.
paint with a lot of
Yes.
color from them.
Yeah, so you can pretty much mix. So what we're going to do, what I would normally do, so my palette is sort of here. If you look at my screen where I'm sitting, that's my palette, that big box, right? And that's got a big sheet of glass on it. It's like, I don't know, 5 feet long or something. And it's got, you know, some things down below that I put stuff in, like some shelves and stuff. So everything I need to paint is sort of on that thing. And why is this other one not working? Oh, my other camera's not right there.
Is the color medium red the same in oils and acrylics? Or is it different in oils?
So in oils, you'll need a you just need to find a warm and cool. Like what we're going to talk about today is the attributes of color, and maybe to think a little bit about how to control it. It's not really like a way to, it's not how I mix, but basically, once you're sort of like, I think it's important to be aware of where you are on the color wheel.
Mhm.
So when you're making a color and you're trying to find a relationship, you know, the problem with when we're just starting, and I know you've all been painting for ages, but when I was just starting, I would basically be mixing for hour upon hour upon hour, you know, trying to get the color right. And what I realized many years later is I was effectively mixing around the color wheel. And so I just kept going around and 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 around. And it was never going to be correct, instead of mixing across the color wheel. And so it's sort of important to work out where you are in the color wheel. And it sounds easy, you know, it sounds easy, but it's not so easy. And so what I do up there on my I've just changed the way I'm doing it sort of about 6 months ago, but now I have a bucket with all the yellows in one bucket, all the reds in one bucket, all the blues in one bucket, all the greens in one bucket, all the browns in one bucket. So I basically have all these different types of color, but it's laid out like a palette.
Mm.
And it's just at the top of my sort of table there. And then I can just grab what I need. But when I was younger, I wouldn't do that. I would lay the color out because I was lazy, basically. And so I wasn't going to get, you know, I was always going to go to the sort of my old favorites. And I was going to go and, you know, just use the same basic colors all the time. And so now I'm much better at, like, I'll spend ages looking for a tube of paint as opposed to trying to mix it, because they all get covered in paint. So now I have to really, you know, scrape through the surface to make sure I've got the one I want. So what I'm going to do, you can see the screen, right? So I'm going to lay out, what I'm going to do is I want you to all to lay out your color. And I want you to sort of make it into like a little color wheel. So I'm going to put the two yellows down and just put a little blob of each. And then the two reds and the two blues. And so what I have, by the way, to paint is I have a couple of buckets of water. Like here's a bucket. And I generally have sort of larger buckets because I don't want to be mixing in small stuff. I have a large palette, but I have a couple of palettes as well. Like I have, like I paint on, you know, these white surfaces I paint on. That's what I've started doing lately. This is a disposable palette just because of today. But maybe I'll just do it on here. No, I'll do it on there. And but I've started like but I have like lots of palettes sort of around my studio. So if I sort of get into a whole thing with red, for example, then like I've literally got one whole palette for red over there. And it just gets, you know, I get lots and lots of like different reds, and it's oil paint, so it stays wet till the next day, and I come back and keep going, you know. So sort of like you all know now, like when you've got a studio that's permanent, you can just leave your stuff out.
Peter?
And yeah,
I don't have cerulean blue, but I have cobalt blue. Is that okay?
that's about the same temperature as ultramarine. Do you have
Okay.
manganese? Manganese is the coolest.
I have indigo blue and cobalt blue and ultramarine. Those are the only ones I have.
So just use the indigo and the ultramarine, but the indigo is it goes a little bit dark, you know.
Okay.
So you
Like
said,
it's just-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
What's that? Whereas
I
the
was gonna say
cerulean,
that-
the cerulean's a pretty nice color. Sorry, what was that?
I was just saying it's cerulean and ultramarine, those are the blues, right?
Yeah.
And for the red, I have a cadmium deep red deep hue and a cadmium red light hue. So those two are okay, right?
You got a cadmium red deep?
Yes, and one that says red light. Cadmium.
You should be okay.
Okay.
How about phthalo blue?
So, you know, phthalo is pretty cool, right?
That's what I'm looking for.
The
cool-
problem with phthalo is that it's really, really strong. It's super duper strong. So, you know, phthalo is sort of fun to paint with, but the problem is it'll get into all your color on your palette.
Okay, I've got a little bit of cerulean, but it's very light cerulean. Where am I?
You've got cerulean, but it's a light cerulean.
Yeah. Do you see it there?
Use the light cerulean then.
There's not a
That'll
lot.
be okay.
Okay.
That'll be okay. Now wait, I'll be right back. I've just left a tube downstairs. I thought I put it out, but it's gone walkabout. I have to go get it. Well, I've got to find it. I thought I had one up here, but now I'm realizing that I don't, which is a disaster. Okay, I'll be right back. So put your paint out and I'll be right back.
Anybody want to sing?
No, but what we going to do now? I am a little bit lost. Maybe I didn't read the email that I got to. Should we paint together today?
I think that's the
Yes.
idea.
Yeah, I think that's what he wants to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a working class rather than, you know, the usual conversation.
Okay.
Something new.
Something new, yeah, because I mean, we never had that. But yeah, okay.
Hey, everyone,
He
you
wants
want
to,
to-
he wants to show us how to mix across the color wheel.
Okay, but we can even look.
hey, if you want to sign up for November critique, the critique sheet is ready. Please sign up. Thank you.
Somebody got a dog, big one.
Yeah, it's mine.
To hear you. What did you say?
What? Oh, I thought it was me. He's annoying. My dog is annoying. He sees anything walking outside or a dog and he goes ballistic.
Is anybody using oil, please?
Oh.
Hello? Anybody using
I
oil?
am Ranju.
Okay. It's so hard to juggle with the computer and have oil on the gloves.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm sitting up high like this.
Okay.
So the stool I'm gonna paint flat on the stool because he said to have one you could paint standing and then one flat. So I'll put it on the stool.
Am I sounding too loud? Because I took my headphones off and I had to put the sound way up to be able to hear him. Am I too loud?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
Thank
cool.
you. All right, I might have to move a little bit.
So are we doing just one palette or two of this, the same thing?
And just one is what he started with, but we'll
Okay.
see. We'll see how it goes.
So you think the one flat is for the practice and then the other one is, you know, for mixing?
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll find out.
All right.
Okay. I'm gonna have to ad lib. I can't find it. That's what happens when you clean up. Okay, one sec. Got an idea. So I'm going to use some gesso. It's not exactly what you're meant to do. But that will work. Okay. So what we're going to do is just play with the color here a bit. And just try to notice what happens. Okay, where are we? Are we back? Very good. Okay, so you know the warms and cools, right? Crimson is cool, medium red is warm, lemon yellow is cool, the yellow ochre is warm, crimson, the cerulean is cool, and the ultramarine is warm. Yep.
Mhm.
Does that all make sense? That's all, and crimson is cool in relation to the medium red. So temperature is relative. And so
Say that again, Peter.
so it's always when we're thinking about temperature and tone, it's relative. There's no absolute black, there's no absolute white. There's no absolute cool, there's no absolute warm. It's just when we're painting, what you'll notice is that something will go dead in an area of your painting. And it could be because the tones are similar, it could be because the temperatures are similar. And so you can put the same tone down with a different temperature and that area will start to come alive again. And so what we're going to do is let's mix a little bit of the yellow and the blue together. What do we get when we do that? So I want you to look around the color wheel as I'm doing this, and what do you notice? What did you just notice then?
You get green.
I got green.
They're across from each other.
They're what?
They're across from each other.
Peter, what blue did you use for the to make the green?
I use the
Cerulean?
no, I use a little bit of the lemon yellow and a little bit of the ultramarine.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
But when I mix it up, can you see? You
Yep.
see my palette a bit better?
Yep.
So notice as I put too much blue in, where is my eye going around the color wheel as I do that? What's it noticing? What's your eye picking up?
You're going more
It's getting darker.
Dark.
Yeah,
The
but
red?
what's your,
Warm and
Yeah.
dark.
Red?
it's picking up the crimson, right? Now, if I put some more yellow into that green, what's my eye going to now as it gets lighter and brighter?
You talking about not the lemon green, you're talking about the other green, right?
Yeah, what's the other color that you're picking up now? This red, right?
Cadmium, yeah.
You're picking up the cadmium.
Could you
And so
discuss
that's
the-
how, what's that?
Just discuss the relationship between those two again, clarify between.
So
what's
basically
picking up?
complements, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to try the other one now. See what
Is
the
it
difference is.
because the warmer green goes to the cadmium and the cooler green goes to the other one?
Well, let's see. So I'm going to get the cool green. I'm
Mhm.
making a really cool green now. And the same thing, right? When it gets bluer, that green, we
Right.
go to the crimson. And when I bring it back into the center of the color wheel a bit more, then our eye goes to this warm red.
I got it.
I don't.
You see
I don't
that?
understand what you mean by goes.
I don't see red inside. I didn't
There's
get.
no red in your yellow and blue mix, so what do you mean?
No, it's basically my eye, when I've got all these colors around it, when I'm mixing up this green, there are moments during the process of mixing when my eye starts to make a connection.
Is that complementary color?
It's complementary, but what I'm trying to get to is that it's not just any green that makes that complement.
That's right, yeah.
So the reason why I'm mixing it and messing around like I'm doing is because there's a point where, and it just happened then, when that red feels very bright.
Oh,
So it's the right green with the right red, because red and green are
Exactly.
complementary, but depending on which green you have, it's which red. It'll be
Exactly.
complementary.
Now watch what happens when I put more cerulean in. So this is just lemon yellow and cerulean. Now the red feels bright. If I put cerulean in,
It
see,
will
it just
not
lost its
glow.
brightness.
Yeah,
Hmm.
It just turned, I just made the red less bright,
Mhm.
yeah, you did.
but I haven't touched the red. I'm not using any red and I haven't touched the red, but I've just messed with the red.
Mhm.
And that's color relationships right there.
Right.
So Peter, but it needs to, is that related with the temperature
Yeah.
of the color?
So the reason, well, it's, you know, it is and it isn't, because basically we're trying to find a complement. And really with any yellow and any blue, we can mix it until our eye jumps to one particular color, this red or that red, and then we've got the complement of that red.
Oh, Peter, can you put more yellow and let's see again into that pile, please?
Don't forget we're recording this, Ranju.
I know. I hope I'm not too loud. I can't wear my
No, it's
headset
fine.
and
It's
I have
fine.
to fumble with the volume.
So see just there where I get that green in the center there,
mhm.
And it matches
that
with
red-
the yellow.
that
Okay.
red then became brighter
Yeah.
with that
Is
green
it
in that
the
little bit in the center.
value?
What's that?
Is it because your value is getting closer?
No, it's just because we're finding the complement.
Oh, okay. The exact complement.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's perceptual.
Mhm.
It's perceptual. So we're working perceptually, which is basically what we're doing when we're painting. When we're in the studio mixing and painting, it's all perceptual.
This is a much better way to see it than when you look at Pantone colors. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, when you basically
you
when
mix it.
complement and when you buy paint, it's all mixed, but nothing's really exact.
Mm.
And if you really want to make it exact, you have to mix it. And this is why I'm saying play with it, like lay the color out there and get it wrong, basically, so that you'll see that your eye will go somewhere else. And then when you start bringing it back again, you'll see that, hang about, that color actually just became brighter. And then when the two colors are singing like that, that's when you've got relational color.
But it has
And
to
so it
be
doesn't
certain-
necessarily have to be, sorry, what was that?
It has to be the mixture of cool blue and cool yellow, or cool warm blue and warm yellow. That's the only way to get it
No, you
closer
can put
to-
any yellow and any blue together.
Okay. Well, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, because you're gonna, yeah.
Peter, it's the quantity that makes the difference. How much yellow you put inside the blue, it makes the
So
difference.
you have to watch the red while you're mixing the green.
Okay, I have a color wheel and I cannot understand the color wheel, this color wheel. I mean, I have red, I have green. It's one opposite the other. Means that the top are complementary to the bottom, and then you have three other ones and three other ones here. Is it going
Yeah,
like
so the color wheel is set up like a theoretical, the color wheel basically got put together sort of by Newton, was the first to sort of basically come up with break the prism apart and come up with a sort of a linear explanation of color. He could see the attributes of color from basically red, yellow, red, orange, yellow, into the blues, the greens, the blues, the violets. And then he basically sort of looped it around.
And does it means that the bright red will go with the bright blue?
Well, it means that what I'm saying, so what we're looking at is the theory of it. When we look at a color wheel, we're looking at something that's sort of theoretically made. It's sort of the reds will be opposite the greens. You can identify your three primaries, and then depending on the color wheel, it'll have one secondary between each, or it'll have three, it'll have lots of secondaries. And then directly opposite is what the complement of that is. But that's just a color wheel to make you think about what the
Okay,
complement is.
but this is the real.
You've still got to go and make the complement in your paint.
Okay.
If you want the complement, But more importantly, the reason I did that is because I wanted you to see that the red changes when I get this color relating to the red in a certain way. That's the key thing, because that's what happens when we're painting. We mix up a color and we put it on the canvas, and suddenly another color has changed. And you'll notice that, like you'll be, when you're painting, you'll be beginning at a painting and you'll be putting color down, and then suddenly, you're feeling it's going pretty well. And then suddenly you'll start to notice that, wait a sec, that area looked really good before. Now it doesn't look so good. Why is it feeling different? And it's because you put a color down that's not relating to all the colors. It might be relating to one or two, but not all the ones that have been previously put down. So let's look at this green. Let me get this here. This is the green we just made, right? So I'm going to get a tiny bit of the warm red. And I'm going to mix it in just here. And I'm going to make, when I do that, I'm sort of going to make a side plane to that ellipse. Did you see what just happened?
Yep.
It became a form. So I put down a green shape. It was flat. I got a tiny bit of the red and mixed it into the green. It's still a green that I've mixed on the side, but now it's made what appears to be a form. Can you all see that?
Yes, like a 3D. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all I did was change the temperature really slightly. And that's what I'm saying. It's all relative. That's warmer than that.
Then you usually use the complementary color to make that, or any color?
I could have used any color. I could have used any color.
Mhm.
It's got to be warmer, and that's important because, so for example, if I'm painting a warm, if we did painting basics, and we were going to paint a still life, and I had a warm object in my still life, sorry, a green object in my still life, I could paint the whole object green, but still make it pop, still make it a form. Still make greens on both sides. So you notice I'm not using black, because if I use black, if we mix black with a yellow, I mean, we'll do that in a
Change
sec
the
because
color.
it's a whole different thing, but it'll make a dirty sort of green.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to make a really nice color when we're doing all this. So did you all try that? Did you do that with your mixing?
No.
Come on, you got to keep up.
Peter, I have a question about complementary in theory. Like, I never agree with this, but this complementary is sort of balanced. So it's, if you put this in theory, if you put the complementary color, the same size and each right next to it, there, that creates some type of balance. That's what in theory, that's I have heard. Do you agree?
So yeah, so there's lots of theories about how to use it, and you know, like say if you go back to say the Signac, if you go back to Paul Signac, who was like a divisionist, right? So he basically, he and his fellow painters who were like painting with little dots of color, they were trying to put one dot of pure color next to another dot of pure color, but complements. So for example, well, not exact complements, they would put red and blue next to each other so that it mixed in your eye. So that way the mixing, and they could have mixed the red and blue together on the palette and made violet, but they said, no, what we'll do is we'll start putting these intense colors next to each other. Then when you stand back and look at the painting, when I put a yellow next to the blue, that'll be a green. When I put the red next to the blue, that'll be a violet. So I can start playing with the color optically. And then the surface will be really scintillating because there'll be maximum contrast on the surface. So it gives a really energetic surface. And so, you know, Matisse sort of did a little of that early on when he was painting, when he was learning. He sort of tried out that stuff, tried on that hat. But then he became a fauve, like when he basically just he said, look, you know what, I'm just going to have maximum intensity all over the place. And I'm not going to worry about letting it mix optically. I'm going to try to make color equivalents to my sensations. So he departed from the theory and he went back to perception. And so really, you know, that's a really good way to think about color, because that's what we're doing. If you're in the studio just painting abstractly, you're working from perception, because you're looking, like we were talking about the female artists from the 50s, and when we talk about metonym, they're basically with their paintings in the studio, perceiving what's going on, looking at what's going on in their paintings and letting it tell them what the next move is. So it's very perceptual. You know, there's a lot about looking. So the theories and all that stuff, you know, I've never really been into them. Like I've read lots of them, but really at the end of the day, I'm just looking at my color, working out what's working, you know, trying to be attentive to what's not working, to catch it when it's not working, to catch it when it is working so I don't paint over it. And also to get a sense of what it's meaning to me, like what the relationships are starting to evoke. And that's not a literal thing. It's more, you know, that's something versus that's nothing. It's just pretty color. Does that help, Tomoko?
Yes. So I think color theory is a sort of trick to learn because it can dominate my mind. So I just don't, I kind of feel like it's double-edged sword. So
Yeah.
I try to read it much at this point.
Can
Yeah.
I ask a question, Peter?
Yeah.
Patricia, so if you mix a lemon yellow, which is cool,
Yeah,
with a cool blue, which is what, the cerulean blue?
yeah, which I did,
You
yeah.
get a cool, a pure green than if you mix the cool lemon yellow with the warm blue. Do you see what I'm saying?
You'll get a different, it'll be a cooler green, correct?
It'll be a cooler
right.
green if you mix the
Yeah.
two cools together. But if you mix a cool with a warm, then it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so we could have done that and put the two next to each other and that would have made a form. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like right now, I could add the ultramarine and that'll make it warmer. So we added a little bit of the medium red, it made it warmer. So right now I'm going to get my green back a little bit. And now that's right, this is still on the outside of the color wheel. So basically color has different attributes. Tone is the first attribute. So if you look at the crimson and the medium red and the lemon yellow, these reds are darker than the lemon yellow. The lemon yellow is lighter, right? And so everything squeezes out of the tube with a tonal sort of personality. So some colors squeeze out and they're really dark. So viridian is really dark, and some colors squeeze out and they're much lighter. So there's a tonal quality, but that doesn't mean it's got to stay a light just because it squeezes out light. And then the second attribute is temperature. And so we've just played with that a little bit. And now I'm going to play with a lot. So what we're going to do now is the third attribute is hue. So you notice I've still got a green on the palette, still just green, right? And then if it goes when I'm mixing, I want to make a neutral that's basically devoid of color. And so I'm going to sort of make some mistakes here. So I thought I went orange. And so when the color goes one way or the other, so for example, I've just put too much cerulean in and the color I'm mixing just got very green, that's requiring me to therefore mix more red into the mix, the complement of the green. Now, if I put too much red into the mix, then it's got a bit violety. See that? So I'm going to put a little bit of yellow into the mix. And it's bringing it back to the center. And then I'm going to put, it's quite a dark color now, so then I'm going to put some white into the mix. This is why I needed the white. And then I can see where I am in the color wheel. Now it's a little bit like a neutral, very muted green, right? So I'm gonna put a little bit of red in, more of the red. Because I want to get it neutral.
You staying with the warm red, yeah? Although
yeah, I'm staying with the same red. I'm just staying with the same red. I'm not going to make it complicated.
Okay.
But we will in a sec, Ranju, don't worry. Trying to make it less yellowy, see if I can do it. Getting yes, little bit by little bit. See, it's getting yes, less like a yellow, more like a complete neutral. So every time what I'm doing is adding a little bit of violet. So I've gone around the color wheel a little bit instead of straight across. So what I'm trying to do is mix straight across the color wheel and get it in the center of the color wheel, this color. Now the theory is, back to theory, that if we mix all these colors together, we'll get black. But it really depends on the pigments that you bought as to whether that'll happen or not. And of course, the theory with light is that if you mix all the colors together, like Newton discovered, you get white. So we're getting a pretty interesting neutral now, right? Do you see that? Now we're just on the other side of the center of, just on the green side of the center. Now, if I put the red back in there, I'll get a really nice red, like I've just done. Do you see that over there? How are you doing, Catherine? Are you mixing?
No, I'm watching and thinking hard. But yeah, I have my palette. I do have it here.
So basically we just reduced the intensity of the red. It's still the same red. That's the same red as that, but just way less intense because I've mixed it with the green. Here it is even more intense, less intense again. Super less intense. See, I'll put it, I'll put it around my little shape up here. Around my little form. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There we go. So now we have this green cube sitting in space, right? If we put a horizon line in, now it's really sitting in space. And then if I build a structure like a composition, now it's actually, we can actually read the pictorial space. Do you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
So now we've got the form sitting back from the front of the picture plane, which is sort of up here somewhere. So you can control intensity by mixing it with the complement. So you've got to find the complement first, and then mixing it with the complement, and then you'll pull it down from the outside of the color wheel. You pull the intensity down in towards the center, and then you can add a little bit of the color back into that color, and it'll just pop straight back out again, depending on how much you add. See how we're getting very quickly back out to this color.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a stronger color, like you'll find, like if we actually put that down, see how that red is semi-transparent?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're painting, often we don't want it to be semi-transparent, we want it to be opaque. And then what do? What do we add to the color to make it opaque? If you want to sort of put down a very strong color over some other colors, for example.
Add white.
Well, if you add white, what happens?
Would be
Let's
more
try it.
than
Let's try it. So we add some white. Here's our white. And look what happens. We don't get the strong red anymore.
yeah.
We get like a pink, right?
Pink.
It's
Yeah.
the same red, but it's really washed out now. So how do we, so if we mix it with the complement, we can get a really strong red.
We need to
Put
do
the
add
other
a neutral.
red.
What's that?
Add a neutral.
Put
If
the
you
other
add, so
red.
if you add a neutral, you'll change the character of the color. It won't be a red. It won't be that red anymore.
Oh,
If you add black, if you add any of the other neutrals, you get, you can play with that and see what you get, but it won't be that red.
Yeah, you add the green back, no?
So you add the complement that we
It's
just found,
green.
Jaffa.
It's green, not?
Yeah. And
You
and
add
basically
blue
by
and
doing
yellow.
that, we're mixing the color, and then we're going to add the red back into it, and it'll pop straight back out. But when it comes back out, it'll be a little bit less intense. Like, it's not so bright. It's the same, sort of the same intensity, but less bright. So it's not glaring. And that also is a problem when the color gets bright, controlling that, but not losing intensity. So we think to reduce the brightness, we have to like add white or almost change the hue. But we don't want to do that. We want to keep that red, but we don't want to be sort of jumping off the canvas. I see Karen mixing there. Patricia, you mixing? Maria, you mixing? Ranju is.
You are using oil, right?
No, I was using acrylic.
Oh, okay. So then just wait until dry and then coming back with white and then coming back with the same color. Does that make it opaque?
So if you wait for the surface to dry, paint it white is what you're saying, paint a white shape, and then painting the color back on top of it, right?
Mm.
So that's a whole different thing. That might work, and that's sort of what artists did in Renaissance, right? They'd start with a really dark surface, paint white shapes into it with lead white, and then they'd sort of build up the color with sort of glazes, right? Sort of intense glazes. But that's a little bit different than what has developed the last 150 years, It's a much slower process. So if you want to wait till your oil paint dries and then paint another shape and then wait until that dries and then come back and put the red on, see how it looks, you can do that. The benefit of that is that then you have the light going through the color off the white back out again. Okay, what if we add some of the warm blue to that red in the center there? Where does our eye go? Do you see it? You see the violet?
Yep.
It's going back to the yellow, to that lemon.
Back to the yellow, right? So now we're finding the complement between the yellow and the violet. What if I add some cool red into the mix? Where does it go? Let's make it a little cooler, really cool. It's going to be hard for the yellow ochre to compete with the lemon yellow.
Justin, you have a question? No?
So what I find also is when I'm putting white into a color, I always add a little bit of something else. And so this is the good thing about having a palette out. Like, so now we're getting some interesting violets talking to these different colors in different ways. But if you lay out your color in the line up here when you're mixing, not only, so, and what happens when we're mixing is that we build up lots of color over the palette, but then you can grab a little bit of something else, imperceptible, but it makes a big difference. See what that yellow ochre just did to that then, that violet. You won't have seen it from over Zoom, but it just changed it and did something to it. Made it sort of quite a beautiful violet. So notice we're going around the color wheel now.
Are you building a neutral again?
Yeah, I was,
Okay.
but now I'm getting back out towards the green. Just now we're going towards the blue, cool blue. So we just went around the color wheel.
Are you always starting with the neutral and then building the color from there?
It depends. If I want to play with the intensity, I am. If I want to adjust the intensity, it's just if I want to adjust, it's like a way of controlling. If I've got a intense color on the edge that's on the edge of the color wheel, and I want to start playing with that color without losing that color. So I want to play with its intensity or even its temperature, then I'm going to be thinking complement. If I want to find a different color, so if I want to move it around the color wheel like I just did then, we just painted around the color wheel. We sort of started off with the violets over here, and then we went to the blues, into the violets more, into the, it became sort of orange, then it became a yellow, then a green, then back to the, back around to the blues, and now we're sort of going to get into the violets again. Just right now. So by going around the color wheel, and this is where we sort of can mix forever and a day if we're not sort of aware of the fact that we're going around the color wheel. So who's been to the Barnes collection? So look at this neutral. It's pretty nice, right?
Sorry, Peter again, is Ale. So when you said neutral, what does exactly that means?
So that's the neutral I just mixed up here.
Is it kind of a gray?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Peter, so you just have like one pile of color and you keep changing in it?
No, I have lots of piles of color, Andrew. So I have a big sheet of glass.
Yes.
Like I said, these various other palettes, and I'm continually just mixing. Where are these two sitting?
What's that?
Where are these two neutrals sitting in relation to the green box?
One's the darker, no, the darker.
Where is this one sitting and this one sitting in relation to that?
Behind.
Yeah.
So they're both behind?
Maybe.
No,
No, I think they're in front.
the gray is in front and the beige, I guess you can call it, is in the back. That's what I see.
So we've got, what's that?
We cannot see it.
Oh.
Okay.
There you go.
The left one is in front.
Forward. Yeah.
And the other one, both are in front of the cream.
Both are in front of the cream?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
It's hard to tell. Yeah.
it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
The back
To
one.
me, the gray on the, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Zoom, I think it's hard to tell.
I think
Like
the
the-
third one is behind.
The gray on, like the lighter gray seems to be in the foreground, in the background.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, you see the green, and then in the foreground, you see the darker gray, right?
That's how I see it too.
Yeah.
Maybe the green is in the closest.
I think it's 1, 2, 3. From the left.
What about now?
I think the
What
left
do you
is
see now?
the left is forward and the right is back. It's my guess.
Right.
The green
Yeah.
is all the way back now, to me.
The green box thing, right?
Yeah, it's all the way back now.
You know, maybe now the brown is in front of everything.
Yeah.
I know. Because you made the left gray a little bit longer. I mean, is it in front of the gray or it doesn't matter?
What about now? What about now?
Green is forward.
Yeah, the green is on top.
So see how things are moving around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just changing a couple of colors and everything's moving every time we change it.
Mm.
And so that's what's basically happening when if we're making color relationships, that's what's happening when we're painting.
Okay.
So we can be like, you know, that sounds pretty simple what we're doing, a little green box, maybe making a space. And it seems pretty simple the logic of that space, but actually it got a little weird, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like, wait a sec, that's in front, that's back. No, you change one color, then suddenly it reads the other way. Like, so this is where I find painting gets really interesting, is where you start shifting the colors and the relationships start forming, and each new color or each change of color changes completely, reorders those relationships.
But when it's dry out, is it different a little bit?
With
Because
acrylic, yeah.
we
With
change
acrylic,
it.
yeah. Acrylic dries a bit darker, right?
So, Peter, sometimes I'm generally confused when you talk about things going forward and back in space, and it could be my own dyslexia, but often when you'll say something is coming forward, I think it's coming back. So I might need some help.
No, just trust what you're thinking. Like, there's no, like I said, this is all perceptual what we're doing. And so at the end of the day, you've got a relationship with what you're making in the studio, and you have to read it, you know? And the key thing is to start reading it, like not thinking of it as an illustration of something, which we can do as abstract painters as well. You know, we can illustrate an idea just as much as someone can illustrate a tree, you know, or a landscape or a figure.
But just if you were to look at this and say, what is coming forward and back? I mean, I'd love to hear that, unless you want to move on to something else. It's fine.
No, I mean, the way I'm reading it here is going to be different to the way you're reading it there.
Got it.
Just because of the nature of what we're doing. You know, I was, you know, obviously intensely painting that shape small and that shape large, and putting this to the left and that to the right, so that the diagonal of the box, hopefully there was a moment where they made the space where that shape and this shape almost sandwiched the box. But then as we changed the color, it started undoing all that idea, you know?
Will you at some point go with like a little bit of bright color somewhere, or would you not?
Yeah, like why not?
And that will pull that area forward, yeah?
What's that?
So wherever the bright color is, that will come forward.
The bright color comes forward?
Yeah.
Okay, so where's that color?
I can't see it. That still looks neutral.
That red?
Yeah. I think it's the forwardest.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it's very bright compared to the rest.
So you're able to read that as being the most forward, right?
Yes. This is such a magic, Peter.
Isn't it fun?
I've never done it before. I hope I understand.
It's totally fun.
it.
When you
What's
put
that?
red, the green went back, like green box went back. Like
When I put the red, the green box
Yes.
went back.
Yeah, I felt that way.
But the front part of the green box, maybe not,
So maybe not the front part.
because that's a different green from the side green.
Yeah.
It's brighter.
Yes.
You're making that warmer.
Let's change up our philosophy here. So now I've just changed the temperature organization for the green box.
Peter, could you hold your palette just down a tad? Did we?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
No worries.
So this process would take forever to get somewhere, isn't it?
That's painting, Ranju.
If I understand, it's going to be fun.
What's that?
If I understand all this, it will be fun.
Yeah, it's great. That's all we
Nobody's
do.
ever-
We just go to the studio and we just basically mix.
You're going over, but it's not making mud.
No. Okay, what happened to the color then? What's happening? Where are we at?
Dark, so it will go back.
Well, that's in front now, to me anyway.
The blue shape, right?
Yeah, the blue's in front.
Yeah. So I've just organized, I reorganized the temperature idea in the space. So I made, because of that red is so warm, and everyone said, well, it's coming forward. So I'm like, okay, how can I make the red go back?
Ah,
So I basically made the front plane of the box warm, the side plane cool, the ground plane cool, and this shape I changed to being a warm. So I basically got a temperature idea through the space.
It looks like the box is in the center of a floor and behind it is a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
so it really
warm-
does give space.
Then warm become closer to you if you put a warm color compared to the blue, the cold one is back.
So let's try it, Chapa.
I think also maybe if you put a longer line, I'm not sure. If you put a longer line compared to the shape of the line also can make you back and forth.
Oh, yeah?
If you make an angle line, then also you can see it backward, no, going back. If you use a little bit the lines, but I'm not sure.
Now there's a painting on the wall.
Yeah, so that's Jaffa's warm color sitting back behind the box, if I can get it painted right. It's getting pretty wet now. Where does that read? Behind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another warm color, Jaffa, yet it's sitting back behind. So to make, you can put whatever you want, wherever you want, you just got to make it work. So basically, if we want that red to be back in the space, we can do that, but we've got to then work everything else in the space so that the red reads back in space.
So you called the ultramarine warm. Was that just in relation to the color that you put it on top of?
Yeah, so initially, I can't remember now, but I think I made that a cool back here.
Okay. And so in relation
And so I
to that,
changed
it's
it and made it warm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now I'm going to sort of put a more neutral color. It's got a bit watery. And you notice whenever I'm painting a new color, I'm painting it over the edges of what's already there. Can you read that?
Well, that's sitting in back now, right? A little highlight.
So now there's a, whatever it is, a window or a painting on the wall or.
Could you tilt it forward so that the light is not shining? There you go. Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. Huh.
Justin, you're mixing? You look like you're mixing.
I am now.
Excellent. Tom, you're mixing? Maren, you're mixing? Where are you, Maren?
Yes.
I'm in my bedroom. My studio is my bedroom.
Do you have a park right outside your window or something?
No, it's just our front yard. It's a tree.
Oh, beautiful.
It is pretty.
How's it going, Tina? Tina, you there?
I am. Yeah, it's going good. So each time, are you mixing the most neutral and then going in a direction?
So it sort of, it depends. I'm not first mixing every color with its complement to get that neutral.
Mm-hmm.
We just started with that so we could learn how to control the intensity.
Okay.
So if we want this red to be less intense, but the same red, we don't want to lose the red. We want it to be less intense. Then I'm going to mix it with the complement.
Okay.
And so, you know, now when I'm painting, because I'm like, I've done this a bit, so I would squeeze out that red, but I know I don't want it to be the same intensity as it squeezes out of the tube.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd be searching for the right blue and yellow to mix into it.
Okay.
You know, when I was a student, our teacher had everyone go and buy Winsor and Newton Darkson Violet as being the violet that makes a dark yellow. Because let's do this. Let's all mix a dark yellow. So let's get that lemon yellow. This will be fun. We're going to get the lemon yellow. And now our palettes are all a big mess, so this would be extra fun. Okay, so we've got a big clump of lemon yellow here, and we're going to make that a darker yellow. So we're not going to make a green.
Okay.
So here's the yellow. How are we going to do that? Ranju, how are we going to do that?
We're going to add yellow ochre.
Okay, Ranju thinks we're going to add yellow ochre. Do you agree with that, Tina?
So are we not allowed to add a little bit of blue and a little bit of red? I mean, is that?
We can, yeah, so we can add, we're going to try and add a violet.
Oh, you're trying to make a violet. Okay.
No, we want to make this yellow darker.
Okay. So can
you're
you?
Spot on. We're going to add a red and a blue.
Okay.
Now, if I want this yellow to be the same temperature, I'm probably going to pick a little bit of the cerulean and put it in, just a little bit, and it goes green, right?
Yes.
And then I'm going to pick a little bit of the crimson and put it in, and it's going to go back towards the yellow. And then the test of whether we got it right or not will be when we add the white, because if we add the white and it feels like we've got a green or an orange, then we've gone around the color wheel a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If we add white and it still feels like a yellow, then we're on the center of the color wheel. So
Is that just through feel, or do you see something?
It's just through feel. So like I'm looking at it, and I can see a little bit of green in this neutral that I'm getting. It's got more neutral, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it still feels a little green to me, so I'm going to put a little bit more red in. And I'm going to say maybe that's the right amount. And then we're going to put some of my incredible gesso in. And it's a little, see there we have a yellow.
So that looks like yellow ochre, yeah?
But it's a darker yellow.
Okay.
I mean, it was a really dark yellow. Now I added the white, it's not as dark as it was, but we've got a yellow. Now, if I put some more of the lemon yellow straight into that, then it stays yellow when it comes back out to the edge. So over here, now we have a very dark yellow of that same lemon yellow. So it's cool. So if I put that cool, you know, on the floor of my room here that I've been making all day. How does that read now?
Down, okay.
I think green comes forward.
Yeah, so it's making a ground plane, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Is it? Or is it not?
yes.
That looks like it.
So we were able to mix that yellow and make it darker. Then it squeezes out of the tube, but not losing its, like not using the quality of the hue. Now this is really, the yellow is the hardest. So that's why I'm saying, that's why we did it. And the hardest one is the lemon yellow. So we did the lemon yellow with the other hardest two colors of the cerulean, because you only need the tiniest bit of cerulean and you're in big trouble. So we first of all got ourselves into big trouble. We put a tiny bit of cerulean into the lemon yellow. It became that strong green. But then straight away, so straight away it's gone around the color wheel, right? The yellow went around towards the greens. And then instead of panicking, going, oh my God, what have I done? I need to get it back to yellow. I'm going to add more yellow back. That's what I used to do as a first year. And then you're in trouble. You're just spending money and you're never going to get that yellow back. So you've got to mix the cool red back in. So it's always whatever color it goes to get it back to the center of the color where you've got to put the complement in. So that's sort of where the complements come in, Tina, is like when I'm mixing, the colors are shifting, and because there's no perfect complement for me to add to the yellow, I had to put a bit of blue in and a bit of red in. But as soon as I touch it with the blue, it becomes green.
Right.
And then the amount of red I put in is determined by how it modifies that green and brings it back towards the center.
And with the lemon yellow, do you try to stay with the cool red and the
Yeah,
cool?
so I stayed with the cool just for argument's sake.
And if you did warmth, then you would confuse the lemon yellow.
If I just put a little bit of the yellow ochre in here, like Ranju said, see how we just made a form.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
It turns a plane. And now I have a yellow cube, a yellow form. And you can do that, like when we're painting. Remember we talked about Kandinsky? Seems like forever ago, but it was literally only sort of earlier this year. But and Kandinsky up until 1914 was obsessed with making his abstract forms volumetric. So they all were moving forward in space and back in space, and they were like shafts of space, and he was making cylinders and all sorts of interesting forms. And then he moved up to Moscow, and he became a sort of a constructivist, or influenced by the constructivists. And then everything went flat. But literally, if we paint around here, with our red, then I'm going to put that form in space. Now it's sort of doing something, right? So it doesn't feel flat at all anymore, right? Look how flat that feels over there. And look how not flat that is. So if you think of Al Hell, this reminds me of Al Hell, this little bit of paint here, just the thickness and the way it's popping a little bit. Al Hell would be doing that. And that would be his painting. It'd be 10 feet by 8 feet.
Huh.
And he'd get, that's now in the MoMA, that painting.
Oh my goodness.
So I have a
What's
question
that?
about, how do you, I see what you're doing with darkening, changing temperatures.
Yeah.
How do you make things super bright? Because I see how you're darkening yellow. I see how you're mixing things together, and it appears to me to be somewhat muted. So if you wanted something to be like way bright.
So it's all, firstly, it's relational. So it depends on what you're putting around it.
Okay.
So if I put someone with a beautifully high voice in amongst a bunch of strong sopranos, you're not going to be able to hear them, right?
Mhm.
But if I put that little delicate, beautiful voice in amongst a bunch of baritones, they're going to shine.
I got it.
And so it depends on what you're relating it to, but also even just mixing, if I took that red, now see how that's brighter than that one.
Mhm.
So this is the red that we mixed with the complement before. And this is the red untouched. Now, if I get the same red and I put a little bit of yellow, just a touch of yellow ochre in it, see how it just got brighter?
If you adjust your palette for just a sec, yes. Uh-huh.
So that's the first one with the complement. That's the red straight out of the tube, and that's the red with a touch of yellow ochre into it.
Yeah, pops right out.
It pops right out.
Yeah.
So I just warmed it up a touch with the yellow ochre. And actually, a touch of yellow ochre into like a cadmium red does brighten it up, as opposed to a little bit of cadmium yellow, which is so strong, it'll make it feel a little bit more orange. Vermilion, which is the pigment that you can buy that, and that's pretty bright. Or cad red light, which I think is meant to sort of be, compete against a vermilion.
So you're saying go across and go up and down the wheel, yeah?
So I'm saying be aware of where you're going, Renju. So if you want to control, if I want to make the red darker and keep it warm, then if I just put the ultramarine in, it's no longer the red, right? It's become a violet. So I'm going to put a little bit of the yellow ochre into it as well. And then it becomes the red again, but darker. So I'm saying be aware of where you are on the color wheel, what you're doing.
It's darker and warmer.
Well, I'm trying to keep the temperature the same. Yeah, I'm not making it cooler. As soon as if you change the temperature, it's going to feel, it may feel like a similar color like these do, but it may also feel like a different color. So like, can we play with tone? We can play with tone. We can play with intensity. So that's less intense and it's darker, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be if I could get this less. The problem with these paints that I'm using, they're all El Cheapo paints. So they all squeeze out of the tube with they're not opaque when they squeeze out of the tube. So if you're painting with it, you've got to constantly fight that, the lack of opacity.
So concerning the different paints, Utrecht, Golden, you recommend Golden as, or Liquitex, or what would you recommend when it comes?
I mean, they're all, I've been using Golden just for like when we teach undergrads, because they all use acrylic. But you've got to try them out to see what you like. But what I don't stick to one brand for my oil paint,
Oh, okay.
Like I've got like lots of brands,
Okay.
So I buy a color specific because I just like that pigment, So the thing about when you start buying pigments is that, like someone said before, like cobalt is an actual different mineral than what ultramarine's made of and cerulean's made of. So they actually feel differently, Okay. So the yellow ochre is an earth pigment. It's it's one of the oldest pigments that we have because it's just found naturally in the quarry. Like I went to an ochre quarry when I was in the center of in Australia, where the Aboriginals have been mining for 60,000 years. When I say mining, they're just walking over there and getting a piece of ochre. So it's like,
so cool.
And they said, don't take any ochre when you go in there. And it's like, and the great thing about ochre is like, it's almost from white ochre to really a dark red, bluey ochre. So you can really get it's like almost a full palette. So I didn't take any, but I got my sketchbook and rubbed the pages on each of the different colors. So one page for each color. So I had this sketchbook now with all these sort of ochre drawings somewhere. I don't know where it is now, but see how we got that dark red there?
Yes.
So I had to mess with it a bit. And that's what mixing's like. Like you just got to mess with it. You got, like if you want a color, just stay with it until you get it. You'll get it. But you'll get it because now you know where you are on the color wheel. Am I trying to go across? And like we're trying to get a darker red. And when I put the blue in, it goes violet. So therefore the complement of violet is yellow. That's what I need to put into that mix to get it back to the red. So it's a little bit antithetical in a way, because we're putting yellow into a mix to get red, or we're putting blue into a mix, to get orange or something. Like it's like not a natural. We're not just putting red into a mix to get red.
Do you think we can learn this?
Totally. I expect you all to have full knowledge of this as of right now.
We're looking forward to having
Peter,
the
you're saying we have to practice at
Are you going to
home?
record this session?
So no, when you're painting, you're doing this, right? So when I was a student, we had to do color charts, lots of them. So we did lots and lots and lots of mixing. And the good thing about a color chart is you can sort of see if you're wrong or not. So, if you get, what you can do, the most simplest thing you could do is get like a black and a white. Now before we move on, before we jump, where's my black? I want to also squeeze a little bit of black on here because black's problematic. And I'll show you why. So here's a little bit of black, right? Now, if I want to get a darker yellow, here's my yellow again, over here. This is what happens when we're painting. We just squeeze into the little gaps too. And it makes a beautiful painting. So if I want to mix that yellow, first of all, I need to clean my brush and get what's left over from the previous color off. So I might go, let's put a little bit of black into that. And I put a little bit of black into it, and look what happened. It's not yellow anymore, right?
It's not even green.
Dirty green.
Yeah. So that's what black does to the color.
It just kind of annihilates it.
Yeah, so even if I mix the white in, it's just a dirty, yellowy, green really. But
Even if you put
not a
more
pretty color.
yellow,
What's that?
even if you go back and put more yellow in it, it will still look like
It's
dirty,
still,
dirty.
what the problem is, it's still gonna always feel a bit dirty. And then when I try to relate it to some other colors, I'm gonna put it on that blue next to that red. And maybe that will work. But it's gonna be hard to relate to other colors.
I've mixed together white with just a tad of black and blue, and I've made some nice grays that way. But you're saying that
Like you can, as soon as the best grays are the ones that you mix just by mixing complements together.
Got it.
They make really beautiful grays. So
I'm seeing.
Look at what.
Yeah.
Look at that one in the center.
Yeah.
So I don't have any black at all, but we've got this gorgeous gray, right?
And then you can warm and cool that up.
Yeah.
Got
the
it.
tiniest bit, and it's warmer. Tiniest bit of this, and it's a touch cooler. And then we can shift it so it goes around the color wheel. But like all of these are different grays. Every time I do that, it's a different gray.
Right.
We've got that gray there. Oops. See those different grays?
Yeah,
Great, aren't they?
yeah.
It's just practice, Catherine. And you know, when you're painting, that's when you're doing it, when you're mixing. So it's sort of, it's basically, it's not stopping with the first color that you get. You know, like if you want a color, then just stay with it a little bit longer till you get it. I mean, fight for that color.
So how do you approach it when you go into the studio? Like, do you set out your primary colors and then?
No, I don't. So I have them all there. I have them all here available to use. And then I basically have the palette that's all the color that's not dry from today, you know? So that's all going to be there. And I come in and basically, generally I'll start working on something. And I'll just look at something and go, oh, and I'll see the color that needs to go there. So then I'll go and mix it and put it down. And so it's literally, if I don't have the color, like, you know, generally I have to mix it. Generally, it's not what's already there, you know, on my palette. But so I sort of, because everything's already, you know, up, then I just walk in and pretty much just start painting, you know.
Peter,
Sometimes I got to mess around on something first, you know.
Peter, how long does oil paint stay wet? Like you say, you put it down and the next day is still good. How long is it? A couple of days? Is it a week?
It depends, yeah. So the mine will stay wet for a fair while because they don't have any dryers in them, and I'm just using walnut oil. Okay. And so they, you know, they're but you know, after a week that'll be impossible to use, you know. Okay. So if you want to leave your palette out, like some people put their oil paint and you know, they'll put it underwater. There's all these different tricks. Put it in the freezer, you know, put a piece of plastic. Or when I was at school, I used to just get Glad wrap, put Glad wrap over the palette. And when you tear the Glad wrap off, it tears some of the paint off, so you lose some. You know.
Okay. So you use walnut oil as a thinner.
As a medium, medium. And spike oil, yeah.
Spike oil.
And
spike oil. Lavender.
Lavender is a thinner, yeah.
Okay.
That stuff's expensive.
It's expensive, and yeah.
Yeah, it's like $40 or more, $60 a bottle.
Oof.
Can't remember. It's not cheap.
Nope. But it beats terps.
Yeah, I mean, so you don't use the chemical sort of terps and things like that. Okay, good.
No. Yeah, I don't like the chemical. I just don't like the I think someone just walked in my studio once ages ago, you know, 12 years ago, and was like, holy hell, it was like walking into a wall of terps, and I couldn't smell it.
Hmm.
And then I knew I was like addicted or something, so I had to stop.
Peter,
you know, like I become numb to it. What's that?
You use two kinds of oils and lavender thing as a thinner. So why use two oils?
Well, because the walnut oil has got a fair bit of substance. So I use the spike oil to thin that down.
That walnut oil takes forever to dry.
Yeah. I mean, I could put dryers in there, but I don't.
That stuff is super toxic also.
Yeah. How are you doing, Rosalind? Well, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. I got you.
Okay.
So
I'm cleaning off this brush so I could mix something because, yeah. You know, the thing I notice about you're mixing is that you always choose just the right amount of whatever it is you want to put on. Whereas when I was mixing, I had way too much whatever color.
Same with me. Yeah. Yeah, I was doing the same.
It's a skill. That's really a skill.
So yeah, you learn that over time, right?
I'm hopeful. I'm with Catherine on that. We will learn this over time.
That's why he's teaching and we're on the other side of the fence here.
We're all in this together, Catherine.
Yeah, we should mix this for now 2 months. You have to demo for 2 months and we'll all get it.
Well, you know, you'll notice that one day you'll just notice that you've learned something because you'll just start doing it very easily. You'll get your sense that you want a color and suddenly you'll have mixed it in 2 seconds flat. And then you're like, wait a second, that was really easy.
Peter,
So it's sort of, you just got to keep doing it. What's that?
are you using the acrylic mediums when you're painting?
So I don't paint with acrylic, but I've just, like I said, I think before I did when I was in Tucson, because my mother-in-law has a studio. She paints with acrylic, so I basically was painting with acrylic. And I decided to try some different mediums because I've been thinking about how to use color in a different way. And so I was like, I think I bought a different, I've got some here. So I bought this GAC 500. It's called Gloss Extender for Fluid Acrylic. I don't know anything about these. I bought airbrush medium because this is sort of what they had in Tucson. They had like airbrush medium. And I would just squirt it onto the canvas sometimes. So I bought, and some pouring medium. So yeah, I was just mucking around with trying to keep it really like a glazes, just see what I can do with painting with glazes. And it sort of has something to do with, like we were talking about Titian the other day, right? So it has something to do with the way Titian was using his color and drawing the way he had to draw because of it, like finding his color ideas, finding his formal ideas through the way the color ideas came to him, through the layer upon layer of glazes. We'll talk about that some more because it's, you know, I think there's a lot to think about in relation to that.
There's a glazing medium. There's a glazing medium in Liquitex that's really good, but you use like
it?
Yes, you can get all sorts of like translucency, but you use a lot of that and very little of the paint.
Right. And that's sort of exactly what Marie just said. That's what a glaze is. It's like your oil medium, and you can thin it down with, you know, like if you're using, you can buy oil, glazes to make, with your oil paint and put a tiny bit of pigment in there. So if you think back at, if we go back sort of a couple of 100 years, then when all the academies had their big shows, there was that glazing day. So remember, everyone put their paintings up, and then there'd be this day where everyone would come and glaze them. And so they were basically putting this glossy stuff on, and it made all their darks sort of come back to life again because they'd all sunk. Now that's one reason why I don't like using black too much.
With acrylics, with acrylics, you want to get some slow dry or palette wetting spray so that your acrylics stay wet longer.
Right. Okay, that's good advice. Yeah.
I take my acrylics that come in tubes or whatever, where's my thing, and I squirt them in these little bottles, and I fill it up then with airbrush medium.
Right.
And it becomes thinner, so then I can use these. You can't hear it. Well, this one's got too much. Usually you can hear it shaking in there.
Yeah.
And that becomes something that you can squeeze, and it still has the intensity of the color.
Right.
And that's
And you have the airbrush, and the airbrush medium you just squeeze out therefore.
Yeah. It just squeezes out like.
Yeah, I didn't mind the airbrush medium actually. It's nice and thin.
But I don't paint with it.
You don't?
No, I only thin my paint with it and put it in, just to get it to a consistency that it will pour,
Yeah.
where you can hear it shake. And then.
But you could really make a glaze with that almost, couldn't you?
Oh yeah. But this, you get a lot more paint for your buck. Because you take, like I took those pouches, so they've got some paints that come in pouches, and I hate those pouches. And I bought these bottles, filled them with a pouch, and then poured the airbrush medium in it until I got to a consistency where I could hear it and would shake it. You can mix it by shaking it because you've got enough of the airbrush medium in it. And then it, it's still plenty of color there.
Right.
But it's in a different format now.
Yep. Good stuff.
I love it. I love it. I almost always put my paint into a bottle using the airbrush medium.
Well, you don't lose it then, right? As well.
Don't lose what?
The paint. It won't dry up.
Oh, it will dry up. Yeah.
Not if you put a cap on it.
Well, I sometimes will put them in these little condiment cups.
Right.
And they've got a lid on them. But they do eventually dry up, but it holds it for a while. But you get a nice loose paint that you can spread around easily with the airbrush medium in there. It's not watery. It's just a little looser. It's not, you know how, well, you like oils, so I hate oils because they're not loose enough. I take my wet brush and I dip it in the paint and I slap it around.
Right.
But if you like the thickness of the paint, the heaviness of the paint, then you wouldn't want to use this. But if you like a thinner paint, not thinner, but just looser.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it. Anyway, these bottles.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I have to go.
Okay. Great work, everyone.
This was great, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Keep at it. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
sounding
Anita.
wonderful.
Oh, thank you,
I
Pete.
enjoyed it.